Welcome again to the channel Lyceum. This is Arnav here. So today's topic is Precis. As I promised earlier that I would come up with a topic of Precis. So let us know what is Precis actually. Precis is just making a brief of a passage. That is a given passage, a selective portion of a literary work or any kind of passage. So let us know what is the purpose of making a Precis. The main idea of making a Precis is to make short of the entire content. A Precis is a brief original summary of the important ideas given in the selection. It is a concise and lucid summary that forsakes all the unnecessary details, illustrations, amplifications, etc. Precis writing aims at intelligent reading first and clear and accurate writing next. We have a false notion that Precis writing means just copying the key lines from the original passage and pasting it into the answer copy. Yes, it is true that you have to keep all the key points in the Precis. But the thing is that you are just meant to reproduce those points in your own writing, in your own language. You were never allowed to borrow the words and expressions directly from the given passage. When you're going to write a Precis, it is important to have a suitable title, whether it is written in the direction of the question paper or not. And the title must be suitable and apt in the true sense of the term. And the title should indicate exactly what the passage is telling about. It should act like a mirror. It is important to know in this respect that the title should be very direct. Any kind of circumlocutions, any kind of roundabout expressions are not at all welcome in the title of the Precis. You should be very true to the spirit of the passage. You should honor the idea of the author. A Precis doesn't allow you to add your own idea, your own opinion after reading the passage. Here you should be very restricted and reserved. A Precis is usually reduced to 1/3 of its original volume. But it is a general idea only. It doesn't mean that you cannot exceed the stipulated word limits. Actually, it is determined by the aptness and compatibility of your writing. Re-narrating an event is an art that needs a long practice. If there is something written in indirect speech, and that is in quotation in the given passage, now the question is how should we deal with it, or how to keep it in the Precis? Should we avoid it? You should cast it aside? Or you were supposed to make a narration of the expression, or you should keep it as it was in the passage? Well, in this respect, it's very important to say that you cannot use a direct speech in the Precis. If you find it important in any way, if you find it unavoidable, then yes, you're right. You have to narrate the expression. You have to make it in indirect speech. But in the process of doing so, you have to keep in mind that you were never meant to make it long. Again, I am saying you, direct speech in any form is highly objectionable in the passage of Precis. So, before attempting a Precis, make sure that you have adopted the ability to read a passage fast and to understand that is written in the passage even faster. And never make a mistake of writing the final copy of the Precis in the first attempt. When you are practicing Precis, it is always better to make a draft first, then come to the final Precis. It will help you to reach perfection. In doing this, if you ask yourself some questions, I hope it will help you to develop your skill faster and in a methodical way. When you're done with the task of making a draft, you ask yourself, did you retain the logical order and development of these thoughts? Did you emphasize the dominant thoughts or erroneously emphasize a minor one? Did you omit any necessary facts, names, dates, places, whatever that be? Is your precis clear to one who has not seen the original one? Did you use third person and the past tense? Did you punctuate the spell correctly? Did you make any grammatical or rhetorical errors? Only after finalizing these points, you go to make the final copy of the precis. And if you have maintained all these points throughout in your writing, then congratulations, you are near to the success. Now, let us come to the first example without wasting time. In the American War of Independence, a corporal and a party of soldiers were told to raise a heavy beam for a battery that was being repaired. There were too few men to do the work, but the corporal, very much on his dignity, did nothing but stand and shout orders. Presently, one officer, not in uniform, rode up. "Hello," he said to the corporal. "Why don't you lend your men a hand to get the beam up?" "Don't you know I am a corporal?" was the reply. "Are you?" said the officer, who then dismounted and joined the men. He walked till the sweat streamed down his face. When the beam had been raised and put into the place, he turned to the corporal and made him a low bow. "Good day, Mr. Corporal," he said. "Next time, if you have too few men for this kind of job, send for the commander-in-chief and I shall be happy to help you again." It was Washington himself. And let us sum up the three key points mentioned in the precis. The first one is self-conceited corporal, who is very proud of holding his rank, and so proud that almost he looks down upon his subordinate. Next one is definitely Washington himself, certainly in civil dress. He shared the pain of labor with his fellow soldiers with ease. And why should he say, it's a pain of labor. It should be the pleasure of labor to the great person. And a third one is certainly the very subtle revelation of his identity with a future promise of such help. See, I have given here two sets of title. The first one, Dignity of Labor, pretty simple one. And the second one, Dignity lies in the labor, not in rank. More vivid in the sense, right? I have completed the precis within 58 words. Even it can be made shorter. Let us read the precis. An American corporal during the War of Independence ordered his men to lift a heavy beam. Washington, traveling incognito, joined hand as he came to know that as a corporal it was beyond his dignity to pay such labor. Having the work done successfully, Washington revealed his identity and obliquely told him to call again in such need. Christopher Columbus was once invited by Ferdinand Isabella to dine with them. One of the invited guests, being jealous of the many marks of honor conferred upon him, asked him if he thought that if he were not born, no other person would have succeeded in discovering the new hemisphere of the world. Columbus made no reply, for he feared that if he were to make a reply, he would either overrate or underrate the importance of his own endeavor. But he held up an egg in his fingers
and requested the invited guests to make it stand on one of its ends. No one thought he could do it. Then Columbus broke one end of the egg and make it stand on that broken end, explained to his opponent. Indeed, it requires a very little skill to do such an easy thing. But nobody could even think of it until someone had first shown the way. He then attributed to God whatever credit attached to his discovery and thanked him for his being chosen as an instrument in the achievement of the great task.
It is a simple story of Christopher Columbus. Again, it comprises 3 points. The first one, Columbus had to face an awkward question in a party arranged by Isabella Ferdinand. The purpose of asking the question to him was very clear, just to humiliate the discovery of Christopher Columbus. Actually, the person meant that the discovery of new hemisphere was an inevitable fact. If he hadn't discovered new hemisphere, there must be somebody else who could have discovered it. And the third one is a very practical answer given by Christopher Columbus without getting into the unwanted controversy and intricacies and altercation. And finally, when he explained it, he gave the entire credit to the God without beating his own drum.
The title is Columbus and the Jealous Courtiers. Once Columbus was asked in a party thrown by Isabella Ferdinand whether he thought if he had not discovered America, it would have been discovered by others. Making no direct answer, Columbus asked all to make an egg stand on either ends. While all failed, he just broke an end and made it stand. Then he explained that it is always easy to follow the way once it has been shown by one. Speech is a great blessing, but it can also be a great curse, for which it helps us to make our intentions and desires known to our fellows. It can also, if we use it carelessly, make our attitude misunderstood. A slip of the tongue, the use of an unusual or an ambiguous word, and so on, may create an enemy where we had hoped to win a friend. Again, different classes of people use different vocabularies, and the ordinary speech of an educated man may strike uneducated listeners as showing pride. Unwillingly, we may use a word bearing different meaning for our listeners, which may hurt the men of our own class. Thus, speech is not a gift to use lightly without thought, but one which demands careful handling. Only a fool will express himself alike to all kinds and conditions of men.
This passage is somewhat different in the line. The entire passage deals with a single idea, that is the art of making speech. Speech is such a sensitive thing that it should be handled rather carefully, because if it is misfired, it can create an enemy instead of making friend. So this is what about the passage. Let us see how to deal with this kind of passages.
See, I have written 2 Precis from the same passage. The purpose is to give you a clear idea that in how many ways it can be written. There is nothing which you have to follow blindly. My videos are guidance program only. I can only guide you to choose the right way. The rest is up to you. So the first Precis is under the title Qualitative Aspects of Speech. As speech has its own pros and cons, the speaker has to be sensible enough about choosing words it, even if used with the best intention, may be misinterpreted, if not delivered according to place, time, and class. A flat expression, irrespective of the status of target audience, is a vain attempt. The title of the second one is Use of Speech, a Horrible Art. A successful speech needs great attention. The speaker has to be selective about using words, being aware of the class of audience. Equivocal expression may deliver a wrong message despite attempting honestly to the listeners. So to be good orator, it is important to be precise. The balance of nature is a very elaborate and delicate system of checks and counterchecks. It is continually being altered as climates change, as new organisms evolve, as animals or plants permeate to new areas. But the alteration have in the past for the most part been slow. Whereas with the arrival of civilized man, the speed has been multiplied manifold. Everywhere man is altering the balance of nature. He is facilitating the spread of plants and animals into new regions, sometimes deliberately, sometimes unconsciously. He is covering huge areas with new kinds of plants, or with houses, factories, slag heaps, and other products of his civilization. He exterminates some species on a large scale, but favors the multiplication of others. In brief, he has done more in 5,000 years to alter the biological aspect of the planet than has nature in 5 million.
Here we have 3 points accordingly. The first one, this is a stability of nature which is highly related to the formation of plants and animals. And the second one, the ecological change in the nature was immensely triggered after the advent of human civilization. And this change causes many species to be extinct from the world. And these manual changes can never be compared with any natural changes that happens in the due course of time.
The title is Man's Role in Ecology. Stability of nature is considerably related to the ongoing permeation of animals and plants. Ecological change in nature has never been so rapid before the advent of human civilization. Either consciously or unknowingly, this change extirpates many species. In short, nature in millions of years could not affect the art which human had done in some thousands.
So this was the first class regarding Precis. So before coming to the second class, this time I will assign you some tasks which you are supposed to complete and beforehand the next class. And the task will be given in the form of some slides after I disappear from the screen. So goodbye.